love, love, until I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Tracy Sharp. She's a young woman sharing her faith story. Hello, Tracy.
Hey, Judy.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'd love to know about your faith story, how you came to know God, and also how you journeyed through addiction and came to God.
I found God, I should say God found me. Coming out of active addiction, I'd come to the end. I've been in active addiction for 25 years and had, quite a few periods of, 10 years of clean time, and then I relapsed. And towards the end of my relapse, I found myself suicidal one night and wasn't quite able to get myself over the line. I'd all but stopped in my addiction and wasn't quite able to get over the line, and found myself suicidal and kind of stuck in that desperation. And the Lord picked me up one night. I was ready to end it all. I'd given up on society and on the world and on myself, and he picked me up, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the start of my journey, which has been amazing. Yeah.
You say the word active addiction. What is the difference between active addiction and addiction?
So active addiction is when somebody's obviously still in that cycle of addiction, still struggling to come out of it. Whereas I guess I'm in recovery now, recovery and maintenance. I think as an addict, you can be in active addiction and you can be in recovery, but you're never really free of that addiction. It's kind of always in the background. I suppose I thought that. It's probably a little less so with the Lord walking beside me. It's not as in the background as it has been in other periods of my recovery. There's a solidarity and a strength that I didn't have in my last lot of recovery. So, yeah.
And what did you find about the character of God that really touched you?
The character of God, I guess, his love for me. In the beginning, I found that quite overwhelming. Coming, I guess, from a very tormented, trauma-based background, love for me was very scary. Love for me kind of meant trauma, abuse, yelling, fighting, and that I guess there was a lot of fear in love for me. A lot of my main relationships were quite abusive when I was a kid. So my distorted view of love. So when I came, I guess when the Lord found me and picked me up and kind of showed me how He wanted to love me, that was quite frightening. And I've struggled with that throughout my entire journey. So it's a lot of my faith process has been about learning to let the Lord love me in the way that He wants to love me, and not in the way that I feel like I deserve to be loved. So it's, a lot of internal healing and shifting, and it's been a very slow process. I didn't get damaged in a day, and I wasn't going to get fixed in a day. And the Lord's, He knows my heart, and He's walked me through that quite beautifully to a place where, I'm able to accept His love now and really kind of walk in it and be okay with it, and really start a different kind of journey in my life.
Yeah. So your life, you've seen quite a lot of trauma. Like from the age of 10, you were homeless, were you?
11. So I moved out of home when I was 11.
Oh, wow.
And was kind of in active addiction from then onwards. I moved out of home quite young due to some circumstances at home, and I hit the streets. And I built myself a new family. I built myself a family that I thought would protect me. I kicked around on the streets quite young, knocked around with some kind of really bad individuals, started dealing drugs, got kind of really violent and aggressive, and just didn't lead a fantastic life. I hit the drug scene fairly early and realised that I was really good at, there was one thing I was really good at, and I was beating people up and selling drugs. That was my new that was my new life, and I built a family on the streets, and spent quite a lot of time out there with my new family.
Yeah. So you didn't have that much time in normal play, as in, games, sports and all this at that age?
I was still, my mum was fantastic in that respect. I was quite connected in sport. I played sport my whole life. I still play sport now. But yeah, throughout my kind of teenage years, and my active addiction was from 11 to kind of 25, and then I had a big gap. I had a big 10-year gap, and then a big relapse. So there have been periods where I haven't kind of played sport and things like that, but yeah, that's one thing that's kind of stuck with me all the way. That's kind of carried me through my life. That was one of those amazing things my mum distilled in us. That's kind of carried me through. Yeah.
And you were talking about, we're talking about drugs. What kind of drugs do you think are quite dangerous at the moment in Australia?
I think all drugs are quite dangerous, obviously. They risk lives consistently. But I think the one that I'm noticing, that's kind of the most scary at the moment in Australia is the ice and the GHB. So I think watching what that's doing to our society and our nation and our young kids, seeing lots of young kids on this drug, and they have absolutely no idea, where they are sometimes and what situations they're putting themselves in. And, I'm just seeing young girls in just the most horrendous circumstances, and, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing and where they are, and no recollection. And, it really, really impacts me watching what GHB is doing to our younger, and ICE as well, watching the violence, and just the anger and the hatred that's kind of, in our world at the moment is because of the ice and the juice is really...
Because it damages the brain, doesn't it? I heard that ice damages some of the receptors that makes people very anxious, because those the dopamine receptors, the ones that relax your brain, get damaged, I was told.
Yeah, I think, look, my understanding is, when you burn out your serotonin levels, and they're in overdrive kind of all of the time, you don't function normally. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, it's great you have a compassion for the young people, and I hear that you've been helping out too. We need to go for a break. You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Tracy Sharp. She's a young woman sharing her faith. Hi, Tracy. Welcome back. You were sharing how you really felt really sad for the young people on the streets who are on drugs. And how do you feel about that? Do you have hope for them?
Absolutely, I have hope. I have hope for most addicts. Coming out of addiction and being in recovery and seeing some other amazing people's journeys. I have hope for every addict. I think, the issue with addiction is that not enough people understand it and understand how to support somebody, who's in active addiction, or, how to help them through that journey. So I think educating other people, and losing that stigma and that judgment, and giving people an understanding that addicts don't choose to be addicts. Addicts are that way for a reason, and with the right support and the right connection and the right guidance, everybody can have recovery. So just giving people an understanding.
Yeah, and what kind of stigmas do addicts go through?
Well, I guess a lot of people, they will look at an addict and they will be like, oh, well, they could just go get a job, or that they could just stop using, and it's not like that. People have addictions for reasons. There's backgrounds, there's trauma, there's lots of reasons that people don't choose to be addicts. Nobody wakes up going, I'm going to be a heroin addict for the rest of my life. There are circumstances that lead people into addiction, just as there are circumstances that can lead people out of addiction.
What do you see as the most common thing that brings people into addiction?
I think, pain and trauma breeds a lack of connection. People get scared to connect with people, and they kind of isolate, and I guess connection for me is the key to leading addicts out of addiction. Yeah.
So when addicts take drugs, they feel connected with each other or with the drug, or what do they feel connected with?
I think and I can only speak for myself, you know, coming from a trauma background, I learned very early on that people could hurt you, you know, in multiple ways. And when the people that are closest to you, you know, when you're young or growing up in your life hurt you, you learn to separate yourself from people. And I think the drugs are a coping mechanism it's not natural to be disconnected, you know, whether it be from the Lord or whether it be from the people around you. Disconnection is not natural. So in order to deal with that disconnection, you have to mask it, and you have to cover it with a substance to make it bearable, you know, to cover the pain and the feeling separate from the rest of the world. And so,
yeah. So they're kind of self-medicating to some extent.
They're separating because it's safer, and they're having to self-medicate because being separate and not having a connection with other human beings and, you know, with your maker is not natural, and it's,
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you know, other young people might turn to alcohol or sports or money or things. Do you think that they're going through another addiction, like those, you know, other young people, those who don't take drugs, but then they are addicted to social media or pornography? Do you think that they're just other addictions of coping?
Look, absolutely. You know, I have brothers and sisters. You know, some are in active addiction, and some coped in different ways. You know, one of my brothers, amazing to his testament, you know, he played video games, and that was his coping mechanism, and, you know, that was how he got through. You know, people deal with things in many, many different ways, but I think for myself, I had a background. You know, I had some family members in active addiction, and that was kind of the normal in my world, so that's where I went. Yeah, people deal with things in lots of different ways.
Yeah, and you find now your faith is the thing that helps you cope in life?
Jesus, my faith is what's pulled me out of addiction. It's what's carried me through. You know, my connection with the Lord is amazing, and I feel really, really fortunate. Yeah, that's, you know, I've got a background, you know, in rehabilitation, and, you know, I've been in recovery for a long time, and I've worked in, you know, rehabs and things like that, and I've volunteered quite a lot. And, you know, all the knowledge in the world won't keep you clean. You know, for me, I needed a connection with the Lord. That's what pulled me out of it, and that's, you know, for the first time in my life, I know that I will never go back to addiction. You know, whereas I've had 10 years of sobriety and I was never really sure. This time I know that my relationship with the Lord is all that I need to keep me out of addiction. You know, it's what sustains me.
Yeah, that gives you hope, and it gives others hope too, isn't it? Because you do hear of people going after being clean, then going back, and that can be a shock. Yeah.
I think, you know, and I explain it to a lot of addicts that I work with at the moment, you know, that hole within you and that constant searching for, you know, joy and happiness, and it's a God-shaped hole. You know, he's really the only thing that can fill it, and until you understand that you need to have a connection with your maker before you will feel whole, then, I guess addiction's not really, recovery's not really all of the time sustainable. And don't get me wrong, some people do go through recovery and, you know, do quite fantastic, and but I think the thing that I've noticed is the ones that go into recovery and then are able to go back out and you know, bring other people with them, and it's, they're the ones that have the Lord in their life and are being led, you know, to help other people out.
Yeah, I love that image of the God-shaped hole, because I think St. Augustine, a famous Catholic saint, said that my soul was restless until I found my rest in God, and he also took drugs. He had a lot of addictions, but he tried so many things. But until he had God's love, he also said that he wished he came to God earlier, because he came to God, I think, in his 40s or something. And he said that once he felt that, you know, he felt complete. Yeah. And with rehabilitation, what kind of rehabilitation, you know, things have you seen that you find helps addicts?
Look, I'm part of a few fellowships. You know, I'm an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, and I stay quite connected. I think a lot of what helps addicts out of addiction is just that connection, having fellowship with other people that understand. you know, people that have been there and completely can understand where you've been at and can show you, I guess, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You know, they can lead you a little bit. And for me, being, you know, I'd done quite a lot of time in rehabilitation centres, and it was quite difficult to hear some things.
Yeah.
But it was quite easy to hear it from another addict that had been there. And,
on that note, we may need to go for a break, but I'm interested. You've been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back after the break.
Go till I hear the breath of the Spirit blowing in me. Blow, blow, go till I hear the breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Tracy Sharp. She's been sharing her faith story. Welcome back, Tracy.
Hi.
You were sharing about how you've walked through addiction and recovered, and now you assist people. What kind of things do you do to assist people who are recovering from addiction?
Well, I guess the biggest thing, you know, the Lord asked me to give my time, you know, to the people that He places in front of me that are still in active addiction. But I guess the main thing I can do is, you know, I pray with these people, you know, and the Lord has me intercede in a much more effective way than I used to. You know, I get to intercede in the spirit realm, and I've seen such amazing shifts in the people that I get to work with through prayer and, just giving time and, you know, handing it up to the Lord and interceding in a different way.
Well, that's amazing, because before your methods, you had certain methods, and you're finding with the faith it's increased the success, do you think?
Yeah, in my very early walk with the Lord, I guess, you know, I was learning still, and I thought that He would, you know, wanted me to go to these people and spend, you know, and that was detrimental for me. I guess, you know, having walked a little bit further with Him now and having the understanding that interceding through prayer, you know, is much more powerful than actually being there and doing things in a very earthly way. You know, I get to battle in the Spirit for them now, and it's much more effective, than what I was doing before. I've seen amazing breakthroughs for people.
Yeah, I agree with you, because sometimes if you go rush out, you know, when I'm doing things out of anxiety and rush out to help them or rescue them, it ends up going pear-shaped because you got stress and anxiety. But you do it backed up with prayer, it helps a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know that through studies that the 12-step program is, and another form of counseling, I think motivational interviewing, are the two top most effective ways of in the welfare system of helping people to recover. What do you think of the AA, the 12-step programs? And I'm not sure if you know motivational interviewing.
I don't know anything about motivational interviewing, but the 12-step program is just absolutely amazing. I could not agree with it more. It brings people into a relationship with the Lord that makes their recovery sustainable. You know, being a member of the 12-step program, and I will be a member of the, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous or the 12-step program for the rest of my life, because it's an amazing program, and people that wouldn't otherwise usually come to the Lord, you know, are able to come into a relationship with Him through that spiritual cleansing that happens in the 12-step program, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of people who go through the 12-step have a sponsor. How does that work with the sponsor?
I guess that goes back into what we were talking to a little bit before. Having somebody, you know, that's 10 years clean ahead of you, you know, that's that motivation that you were just talking about. It motivates people. And addicts still in active addiction can look at somebody who's 10 years clean and go, wow, I want that, and it's possible, and, you know, I'll do whatever I can do to get that. So it gives inspiration, and that, you know, there is a path out of addiction, and it is sustainable, and you can be happy. Which feels out of reach for a lot of addicts sometimes when they're in that active addiction still. Happiness doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, and do you find that community is a very important thing for you in your recovery?
Absolutely. You know, I'm surrounded by amazing people, you know, and it doesn't matter whether you're walking with the Lord or not, you know, every day's not a peach, and life still happens, and you do still need to be connected with amazing people around you to support you, and so I'm surrounded by amazing people. I'm very blessed.
Yeah, I know that I've had little addictions or habits but I find that one way that it stops me is when I feel the urge to, eat something or take something. I just maybe make a phone call or say a prayer, and that seems to, be able to overcome the temptation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can do either, when there are many times during the day that I'm tempted, and I'm able to talk to the Lord and ask Him to kind of give me His strength. Or I'm also, able, if I don't want to do that, to call another person and just talk about it and lighten that load. And so it's
I love
huge
that.
to have connection.
I love that scripture, share one another's burdens, pray for one another. It's kind of like a direction from God.
Yeah, so you've got to be able to do both, walk with the Lord and hand it up to Him, but also walk with your fellow man and have connection. And
I think there's a degree of an ask from people to be humble, because to actually ring someone up takes a degree of humility and breaking your pride, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I struggle with that in my walk with the Lord at many stages. My whole life I've been independent and out on my own since I was 11. I was quite proud that I, did things on my own, and I guess in my walk with the Lord, He's really taught me that I can't do this on my own. I couldn't do this in my own strength. I walk in the Lord's strength, and I need other people around me, and my pride sometimes very much gets in the way. Which is the case with a lot of addicts, because they're so fiercely independent, and we do need people, and we do need connection, and we do need the Lord. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I suppose that whole thing, no man is an island.
Right.
I remember the movie Tom Hanks was in, that he felt so alone that he made a basketball with a face on it. What was it? I can't remember.
Wilson.
Wilson, you know about Wilson.
I like Wilson.
Yeah. Do you do sponsorship yourself? Do you sponsor people?
Not at the moment, no. I guess, a lot of people in the fellowship sponsor other people in the fellowship. I guess the Lord uses me in a different way. He kind of leads me to who He'd like me to support. And I get to, I guess, do unofficial ministry, with people that I've known for a long time, or just people that He places in my way.
And that's the best way, because you can really be there, and be natural about it. So that's great.
I'm able to offer, I guess, my experience and my compassion and my understanding, to people that are still suffering.
Yeah.
And, pray lots for them.
Wow.
Without prayer, it doesn't work.
Well, you suddenly have inspired me, Tracy, and thank you for coming to the show, and we'll have you back.
Thank you for having me.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us again next week when we're hearing Tracy again. God bless you.